Continuing on with our interview series, in this video I want to talk to you about preparing for the interview in terms of logistics and the material you bring with you. What do I mean by logistics? Those are things like the time you arrive, location, parking schedule, all of those things. So here's some good tips there. How early should you arrive to an interview? Normally about 15 minutes early, but you try to walk into the office where you'll be interviewing no more than 5 to 10 minutes early. Okay, now that means you have to account for traffic, directions, any other thing that could get in the way. So my recommendation is, particularly if you're going to a place in heavy traffic or you're not terribly familiar with it, show up considerably early, 30 minutes or more. Now that doesn't mean you pull up to the building or right outside where you'll be interviewing. Okay, go to the back of the parking garage, go to the back of the parking lot, or just wait somewhere close by until, once again, it's close to that time. That will give you time to study up on some of the things we're going to talk about. We talk about in other videos, like research you should do prior to undertaking an interview, that type of thing. And we'll talk about in a minute that you should have flashcards with you, with information about the company. That's a good time to review those things and just make any last minute, take any last minute actions that you need to be successful in the interview. Okay, figuring out where the location is. Again, you should probably figure that out ahead of time. So even going a day early and scouting out the place so you know exactly where to go, that type of thing. Timing it at that time so you know how to judge for traffic. Where do you park? Oftentimes it's reserved parking, right? You have to park on different levels of a parking deck. Sometimes it's street parking and need to be validated, that type of thing. So anyway, make certain that you account for all of those things and schedule. What your schedule is going to be once you arrive there. Who are you going to meet with? Memorizing people's names ahead of time. Memorizing the schedule of what's going to happen throughout the interview process. Also, an important thing to remember is that obviously things are subject to change. You never know what's going to happen. You could get stuck in traffic, so you could be given the wrong information. So make certain to print out any information that you have ahead of time. That is, any emails back and forth with the company, any directions, things like that. So if something happens, say you show up and the assistant or secretary says, well, your interview was an hour ago. Right, you missed it. That looks terrible for you. But if you have a copy of the email you were sent that told you this specific time, right, rather than you simply trying to explain yourself or saying it wasn't your fault or you don't know how it happened, that type of thing, when you have some level of justification. So once again, you're trying to preserve face there and not squash an opportunity by the happening of misfortune. Okay, so remember that. All the correspondence, the schedule, the map of where you're supposed to park, parking voucher, anything like that comes with it. So those are the logistics to think of. Now, things to bring with you, all right? One, you're going to come in probably with a portfolio or maybe a shoulder bag of sorts. Okay, just make sure whatever that is looks professional. Most of the time people just bring a small, covered portfolio type thing, leather, fake leather, that type of thing with a nice looking pen. But in there, have copies of your resume. Bring business cards, because you never know, you'll meet people that you aren't interviewing with, and when you introduce yourself, you can once again hand over your business card, that type of thing. And I know you say, well, you're changing positions type thing. This is particularly useful if you have a general business card as just marketing professional, that type of thing, where people can contact you and it has your cell phone number on it. Recommendations, right? So if you have letters of recommendation or references, that type of thing, so have a sheet of your references with contact information, title, position, all of those things. But also if you have any letters of recommendation that you think may be relevant to bring with you, there you go, especially if you weren't able to submit them during the application process. Notepad and pen to take notes, and then company info, right? Things about the company, like written out on flashcards or on sheets, just things like what's the structure, who are the executives, if there are people in the chain of authority that you're applying for, understanding that, knowing the company's products well, that type of thing. Even if it's with the outside of your functional area within the company, having good, strong company information and knowledge will be extremely helpful to you during the interview process. And then a list of practice questions. Questions being things that they are likely to ask you, but also a list of things that you can ask them. Okay, it's good to just keep refreshing these things, because as we talk about in a separate video, you're going to have a lot of simple questions about what happened in the past. But when it comes to behavior-based questions, either from the past or in the present, future, hypothetical, you're going to need to use stories from your past, things that happened in the past that illustrate how you would react, or give an example of something you learned from, or a time you were successful or failed, right? And having these stories just encapsulated very succinctly that you can plug and play where necessary as part of the interview process is very important. So having some of these things written down, just things to remember and think about, right? Information about the company, okay? Again, I cannot stress this enough. We talk about in other videos things that you should research ahead of time. People oftentimes forget when you're in a company that people outside the company don't know these things. So you want to make sure you do, right? So it's going to take some research. And then lastly, information about yourself, right? You're going to practice going down your resume and taking somebody through your history. You're going to practice repeating what you said in a cover letter if you did a cover letter. That is, why you did these things in the past, what you are striving for, how these things translate into value for the company, what you aspire to in the company. That type of thing. So taken all together, bring these things with you, prepare ahead of time, understand the logistics, and it will make you more likely to be successful during the interview.